Joining us now from the Connecticut Association of Urban School Superintendents, we have Dr. Madeline Negrón. She is the superintendent of New Haven Public Schools, and we appreciate you joining us, and Thomas Anderson from East Hartford Public Schools. So both of you, we appreciate you being with us here today. So it's a legislative session, right? And we've talked about schools. In fact, last time you were on, Superintendent Negrón, we talked about the disparity between the suburbs and the cities. So what are you asking for this legislative session?
I think here, as we are coming to represent our Connecticut Association of Urban Superintendents, we want the public to truly understand what we're dealing with today. And the reality is that we are trying to provide for our children in 2026 with the same level of funding that was happening back in 2013. And we know that when you make that kind of a comparison, it just doesn't add up.
What are some of the challenges East Hartford schools face right now?
You know, when we look at the Urban Superintendents Network, we represent over 190,000 students. And so we look specifically at East Hartford, and we think about the funding stream and the amount per pupil is always a challenge. We have so many students that end up leaving the district because we're always strapped a little bit with trying to create more opportunities that can compete with some of the other areas that are a little bit more well-funded during that time.
I know we talked about salaries. Teacher salaries tend to be higher in the suburbs, and I know you wanted to get them higher so that you could attract better teachers to the cities as well. Where does that stand? What's the latest on that?
We're very proud of this last agreement that we reached with the teachers union. They will be receiving an increase, which they so well deserve. But again, that comes at a challenge for us. Because now when we think about what we need to provide for our kids, we now also have to add that added percentage that we're going to have in teacher salaries.
So as I understand it right now, so in the upcoming budget, it's flat, right? There's no increases, but no cuts. But essentially it is a cut, right?
It is a cut.
Exactly.
In your opinion, why?
Because if you can't keep up with, when we think about salaries, if you can't keep up with the increases, something else has to go. So if you have $10 and you have to continue to spread that same $10, your level of competition or being able to compete with some of the other places that get those increases each year, it makes it a huge challenge in being able to recruit and retain, that level of a talent.
And you're saying if this budget continues as is, right, as written right now or is being talked about, that you might have to lay teachers off?
That is correct. I mean, we think about all the very challenging decisions that have to be made between having the appropriate services for students, having the appropriate staff. But if we continue to be flat funded, how are we going to be able to account for that and maintain the level of service for our kids? So there will be no other, in many cases, any other option than having to make some significant cuts.
And this is the same in East Hartford, layoffs and cuts as well?
The simple answer is yes. And so again, when we're looking at how the level of creativity, when we're trying to create programs, or you can't create those programs because sometimes you have to invest in people to be able to do that. So if that funding is not there when we're trying to compete, there's no opportunity to do that.
What other kind of cuts in programs would you foresee?
When we're trying to retain students in terms of magnet level programs, in terms of signature, we try to offer more science and technology with the, not just a Chromebook, but with a laptop and being able to provide professional development to staff. We have to cut into that area there because if we're not able to pay the staff to be there, then how are we going to train them to really provide the level of education that we should have?
So if you're not getting money from the state, you'll have to turn to city residents and taxpayers to get the money,
And
which
once
would be
again,
a tax cut.
yes, the burden goes on
which
to
no
a
one has
local
an appetite
taxpayer.
for. Have you talked to the mayor about this at all?
I have to say that the mayor continues to be extremely supportive of education here in New Haven. We have experienced years where he has increased the allocation, but it's not enough. And again, we need the state to step up and really think about updating the ECS formula. We cannot continue with the same base foundational amount that hasn't accounted for inflation. And we're talking decades of inflation that it's not meeting, again, our needs to be able to provide for our kids.
And in East Hartford, what has Mayor Martin said to you about this?
He's very supportive. And the thing is, we try to be fiscally responsible and try not to ask for more than we should have. But there's no more trimming. There's not anything about trimming the fat or excess. It's that excess that people think exists is really not there. What it really does, it impacts what's happening in the classroom. When we talk about class size, and the quality education that we should be providing.
How frustrating is it for you when you look across the way to the suburbs and you look at like a Madison or an Avon or other towns that have more money to play with in their school system?
I would say that having spent 30 years in urban environments, it is extremely discouraging because all children across the state deserve a high quality public education, and that is not what is happening right now. Because again, you're putting the burden on the local taxpayer, and you continue to create this system of inequities of the haves and the have-nots.
I'll let you have the final word on that.
It is. I think when we look at that, we have to be very mindful of the opportunities that exist. And I think what happens too often, they want to pit different communities against one another instead of saying, these are the opportunities that we say are going to be provided for all children. So we need to come together, provide the level of funding so families aren't feeling as though they have to leave East Hartford or New Haven to go someplace else to get with an education that is high quality already.
Well, I know you both will be lobbying your state lawmakers and your state senators, and
Correct.
state representatives, and of course the mayors to help out as well. So best of luck. Thomas Anderson from East Hartford, Superintendent of Schools there. Madeline Negrón from New Haven. We thank you so much for your insight on this. And best of luck at the Capitol with this.
Thanks.
And when we come back, big changes in the way restaurants and hotels market to people outside of Connecticut and here in the state as well, all to make more money.